So it's been about 2.5 years since both of these phones came out. Actually, the iPhone 15 Pro Max around 2 years and 9 months already. So it's going on 3 already, believe it or not. In this episode, I'm going to share with you my long-term review of these two and give you kind of a update for 2026. They are both on the latest versions of the software, iOS 26.5 and One UI 8.5 on the right. Let's find out which one comes out on top here in 2026. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and let's talk about design and ergonomics to get things started off. Now, I babied both of these phones, so I don't really have a lot to report in terms of damage or anything like that, because this was an era when the devices were just so premium feeling with the titanium. I kept them in cases, I wiped them down, I babied them basically. But I did suffer a couple of little nicks on the S24 Ultra. But I gotta say, both of these phones just absolutely look so stunning here, even in 2026. I actually think these phones look better than some of the current flagships. I personally think that they look a little bit more premium, and that's mostly due to their natural titanium look. They just look extremely premium and high cost. I really do feel that way. But I gotta say that over this period, this long term of owning both of these, I have tend to prefer holding the iPhone 15 Pro Max. This phone has a really nice sweet spot screen size of around 6.7 inches, and it has very flat edges, and it's pretty curved in the corners, a lot similar to like the current iPhone 17 has basically the same type of design. Yes, the 17 is slightly smoother at the edges, but not crazy amount more. So this phone just feels very good in the hand, and definitely less bulky than the S24 Ultra, which has always been a phone that you really feel the corners. However, I gotta say, one thing I really enjoyed about the Ultra and still do to this day is this feels very uniquely Samsung. It feels very Ultra, very like Note-like. It's just amazing. It just feels like its own unique take on a smartphone, and nothing really else feels like this. So the Ultra, to me, this Ultra still feels very much like the classic, the true Samsung Ultra right here, and I do love it for that. And I also like its very rectangle display for productivity. I think it's a really very useful panel here. But ergonomically, it hasn't been as fun to use. I much prefer what came after with the S25 and S26 Ultra when it comes to holding the phone. So I'm going to give the design and ergonomics over the past couple years to the iPhone, with the looks making a statement to the S24 Ultra. So when talking about the displays, they both have aged incredibly well. One thing you'll notice is that some of the phones that are no longer the top-end flagships now have panels like this with similar size bezels. These are pretty thin bezels, but these bezels now are even thinner on new top flagships. So these would be like the versions below, like this would be like the S26 Plus or something like that, would get this type of bezel. Or maybe you'll get like a base model, iPhone will get a bezel like this. So it's not thick. It's very much, I don't even know why I'm really talking about it too much, but the fact of the matter is the new ones kind of almost are bezel-less. So I do notice that a little bit here, but I gotta say the panel itself still looks incredibly sharp. It's still OLED. It's very, very bright. And it still scrolls at about the same pace as a newer iPhone. So using this display day to day has been a dream to still use. And again, with that 6.7 inch size, it just feels a little bit more compact than the 6.9s on the current 16 Pro and 17 Pro Max. And so I do think it's a sweet spot size with a really bright and crisp panel. However, because the titanium and the heat management on this phone is not great, this display has over time dimmed a little bit more than I would like. Not quite as much as I've seen on some of the 14 Pro series, but when this phone gets hot, you'll be raising the brightness slider and it doesn't do anything. It'll just stay in like one spot, and that got annoying for me with my 15 Pro Max. Now, one of the things I love about the Galaxy S24 Ultra is that this has a lot of really nice display features, like the ability to pull that brightness up quite a bit has been great over the long term, because then I don't have to wait for the sun to get into to get the full brightness. But that grain issue is still here at the very low brightnesses. You won't see it here in the video. You'll see it at nighttime. That has been rectified on the S25 Ultra and S26 Ultra, but the S26 Ultra has a new display that some people don't like, the pixel arrangement. So this actually looks sharper than the S26 Ultra to a lot of people's eyes. 1440p, and then the phone itself gets very bright, but also has thicker bezels than some of the newer phones. They're not thick, they're just thicker than the newer phones. So that's just something you notice if you've seen a newer phone that's spilling over the edge with basically no bezel. This phone definitely looks like a year or two old, not that old, but still, it doesn't look quite as good as like the S26 Ultra in terms of bezelless. Also, the punch hole is thinner though than some of the newer Samsung phones, so I do like that that's smaller. That's just something to note. And generally, it's aged incredibly well. It doesn't dim hardly ever. You can access full brightness most of the time. And so I've actually preferred the S24 Ultra's display of these two over time. Even though the phone itself is a little more uncomfortable to hold, I do like the display more. I think it looks better on the S24 Ultra. I think it's brighter feeling, and I also think that it's a better media phone and productivity phone where you can basically put like things side by side. It has a much more expansive panel for watching content. So I've enjoyed this a lot more than this display over here, although it's closing the gap more on the 16 Pro Max as that one and 17 Pro Max as they got larger. So when it comes to battery life, the iPhone 15 Pro Max was never really a showstopper when it comes to battery life. You do have to turn on low power mode occasionally if you're a heavy user on this phone, but not very frequently. But what I will say is this phone definitely doesn't do quite as good as it used to, but it still lasts a full day, especially better than the S24 Ultra at standby time, and also when doing 4K video recording. I notice it lasts a little bit longer than the S24 Ultra. In addition, this phone does get updates quite a bit, but they tend to sometimes make the battery life worse, and then another update will come out and it gets better. So I find a little bit more inconsistency with battery life on the 15 Pro Max depending on the current iOS update, whereas it can happen on, and does happen sometimes on Samsung phone, Galaxy S24 Ultra as well, but it hasn't happened as frequently. They're a little bit more consistent with keeping that battery life the same. I also found that the S24 Ultra is a longer lasting battery phone, especially when using things like maps, for example, on your phone, Google Maps, Waze, whatever, if you're doing GPS. Also, this Galaxy S24 Ultra, while still does really good video and photos and stuff like that, when you are pushing UHD or recording 8K, it really does hit the battery hard on this phone. So I feel a bit better on battery life when doing content creation and stuff like that, I found. But one thing about this S24 Ultra is that it doesn't charge quite as fast as some of the competing OnePlus phones of this era still. So this doesn't charge super fast, and it drains a little bit faster than you might like if you're a really heavy user. So neither of these overly impressive. I would just say in 2026, if you're going with one of these now, go with the iPhone if you want better standby. Go with the Galaxy if you want better, heavier use on GPS and gaming, stuff like that. But go with this one on the left if you're just doing like social media and camera stuff. I think it lasts a little bit longer on the left. Both of them still all day excellent performers, but they will finish the day with less battery life than some of the newer phones. And that's not just because their batteries are new. It's because they actually have larger batteries and better optimization, better CPUs. So those phones just last good 2 hours or so longer. So these kind of don't feel like top tier performers anymore, but they still feel good enough is how I would describe it. So when it comes to the cameras, let's talk about both of them because both of them have been absolutely amazing. The iPhone 15 Pro Max is the one I think has been more consistent. It tends to have a better preview image. So like when you're taking this photo right here, before you take the photo, you kind of see what you're going to get. You don't really have to wait too much for too much processing. So I do like that about it. Also, I think it has faster and more reliable lens switching and also quicker shutter speed on here. Pretty good front-facing camera, about the same quality as what you'll find on like a 16 base model, so not a big deal. Or even a 16 Pro Max, it's not that much different on the front. You can punch in a little bit, but not nearly as wide as the newer phones. Video recording has been awesome as well, and it has relatively respectable zoom. and here up to 25. So I think it's still more than enough for most folks in 2026. It's been a very consistent and nice, sharp image that is produced out of this device right here. You can easily get on with this for another 3 years, I would say easily, on the 15 Pro Max. Now, where the S24 Ultra, you know, this over this period has been really good is the zoom, and also very sharp images as well. Processes these things very nicely. It's not really fast when it comes to shutter speed, and sometimes the preview image, it looks a lot better after you wait a second for it to clear up, like right there. Did you see how much clearer that got? So you're not really getting a full, like when you're looking at it right here, watch this. We'll take that photo one more time. You seen that right there? It just made that extra like processing, and then it looks absolutely stunning. I would like to see it prior to having to wait. So that's something I noticed about this phone. And also when you're zooming in, as you get to the further zooms, they're kind of, I mean, you have it, but they're not amazing in terms of overall quality at the longer zooms. You'll see not too much zooming in and out on the front-facing camera, but also pretty good front-facing camera. Still, I find the selfie better on the 15 Pro Max. And then over here, one of the things that's been glorious about this phone has been their many modes to play with. So absolutely phenomenal camera system over here for the S24 Ultra. But I would say consistency wise over this period, I've liked the 15 Pro Max a bit more, but I still think it's a lot more versatile of a setup over here on the S24 Ultra. So if you want all those features, this is still the king over here. Now, when it comes to software, I gotta say, you still have iOS 26.5 right here. I said iOS 25. iOS 26.5 right here, kind of the same feeling you'll get on a 17 Pro Max. Not a real big difference. You do have the same updates. I will say at first, when you first download these major 26 updates, they tend to hit the battery a little bit. There's some indexing going on, and it takes a couple days for everything to iron itself out. Once it does, though, it runs pretty well, and I don't have any real issues with it. One thing I will say is performance-wise, it does get a little bit toastier than I would like due to the titanium. They've already fixed this on the futures iPhones, like on the 16 Pro Max, it got better, and 17 Pro Max is amazing with thermals, but you'll still feel that even now. That hasn't really changed. They have done some things in software that have toned it down a bit so it doesn't get nearly as hot as when it first came out, but it's still a thing for this phone, and you'll even hear some users in the comments talk about how they can't stand that they got to slap a case on this phone. So that's what I've experienced as well. And this phone, other than that though, performs pretty excellent for day to day and doesn't really give me any major issues. You can get a stutter here and there. I mean, it's not perfect. It's not 12 gigs of RAM, but it's for the most part very consistent, but it's also kind of boring as well. I get kind of bored of using that phone. On the flip side, the S24 Ultra is a phone you just want to play with all day. This thing is so fun to use while also being very productive. So lots of versatility here. It just reminds me of a product that just has everything in the kitchen sink. You could customize this thing. It could be a great GPS device. Awesome kind of like rectangular big panel. Just feels like a little TV in your hand. I mean, the whole device just feels like an absolute beast overall. So it does, I think this one is really deserving of the Ultra name. And then the S Pen slots in there beautifully. We don't have any of that, angles. It just perfectly it's reversible. You can put it in either way. And also this pen right here is Bluetooth capable. So it's even better than the S26 Ultra's pen, which is kind of crazy saying that, but it just feels great. And one of the things is this phone, because of its more hefty, big feel, it feels like a very great phone to write with. So if you like to use the S Pen experience a lot, I think this is the best Samsung ever did on the Ultra. This is the best phone ever there for S Pen, because it just feels like perfectly like a big notepad. And also you can use the Bluetooth functionality on there with that S Pen. So this is just the king of that area. And also I found that the software updates have been very consistent on both. You do take a little bit more time to get that software update for the Galaxy over here. But if we do go to the iPhone, they do come in a little bit faster, but sometimes updates, I think, like I said before, they kind of break things sometimes. Sometimes they got to do another update. Samsung takes a little bit longer, but I typically feel like I get a little bit more of a stable update. So I've been pretty happy with their update support. You still have several years left on both. You're not going to go 5, but you'll still have like 3 or 4 left on both of these. So it's still a good time to pick up one of these secondhand. If you want a premium phone, you don't want to pay a premium price anymore for it. Audio wise, I found the S24 Ultra got louder in this experience owning these phones, and the iPhone 15 Pro Max got definitely pretty close to the same loudness, but it was a little bit better sounding at full volume. But Dolby Atmos is available for more customization. Once again, better customization on the S24 Ultra. But I want to wrap it up here. You still have Samsung DeX, so this phone is way more usable when it comes to a computer and stuff like that. This was the first iPhone series with USB-C on the 15 Pro Max, but the USB-C has been available over here, so that's not really a big advantage to iPhone. Right there, SIM card tray on the S24 Ultra, not available for the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So if that's something you care about, there's only one option here. But the verdict is in after 2.5 years. Which phone do I think has been better? And I gotta say, if I'm being totally real with you here, it's the S24 Ultra. This phone just doesn't have almost any flaw. There's a reason why a lot of people call this the goated Ultra phone of all time. This thing looks stunning. It performs stunning. Battery is good. It's not the best battery ever, but it's really good. Great S Pen with Bluetooth features. Beautiful camera systems on both front and rear. And SIM card support, eSIM as well. You have basically everything you would want over here. The only thing is it doesn't have expandable memory, but that is a small price to pay because you can still go ahead and get this phone with a high amount of storage and probably cheaper than a new phone. So this has been the one I think that was better over time. 15 Pro Max, I kind of couldn't wait for them to fix them thermals. When I had owned this phone and played with this phone, I feel like I was waiting for the next version, and I was very happy with the 16 Pro Max, and I kind of forget about this phone sometimes. So it's not really that memorable besides the titanium, which I do love. So it's a little bit more forgettable than the S24 Ultra. That could be too because Samsung kind of hasn't been improving on this in all areas. They kind of took a step back in a couple of areas. But at the same time, these phones are still really great used options right now. So that's my long-term review on these two devices. I think they're both excellent pickups now. If you want them used, probably better than a lot of new mid-rangers, a lot of cheaper new phones as well, for sure. These are kind of like a great, like really premium used car of a few years ago that depreciated. What an amazing deal these are now. So thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to go ahead and share your comments, your thoughts, drop them down below in the comment section of this video. I'd love to chat with you about that. Nick here. Be sure to be well. I'll catch you on the next episode. And peace.